Welcome back to Inglorious Banters. This is episode 5. Our episode this week is called One Flew Over the Colmar's Nest. And I say this week, but it's definitely been more than a week since we last recorded.
Has been, yeah.
Especially with the festive season. At the time we're recording now, it's like 4th of January, so we're well past Christmas, New Year's. I don't know if you guys know, but that time between Christmas and New Year's,
It doesn't exist, man. It's like one blurred section of time where it does go like light and dark, but you have no idea what day it is.
no, it's a time hole. It's been a while since we recorded, but we're very happy to be back on the scene. And when I say we, I mean 3 of us this week, because we've managed to rope one of our dear friends in to have a chat with us today. Andrew, welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Excellent. Andrew is a long-time hobbyist and friend, and we're going to grill him about information.
Yeah, you've probably heard us talk about him a bit before when we referenced some of the terrain he's been building, or his War Master stuff, or him printing up stuff for us, all the 3D prints.
Yeah, sneaky garage 3D printer.
Yeah. So across the episode this time, we're going to do a normal chat about what hobby we've been doing, sort of catch up with all the things that are new. We'll grill Andrew for information about his hobby origins and get his story of how he became a radioactive hobby superhero. We're going to have a bit of a chat about the 365 challenge, and then onto some bolt action stuff for state of the game and our progress in opposed armies for Colmar, and 2 new opposed armies that are on the scene in our gaming group as well.
Yes.
And that's our plan. So we might kick off with finding out a bit more about Andrew. So Andrew used to work at Games Workshop with Mitch and I way back in the day. Before you graced that pearly scene with your presence, what got you started in miniatures hobby?
Yeah, so to make these guys feel a little bit old, it's been 20 years since I first met them in the Games Workshop.
Has it been that long?
20 years, yes.
Wow.
I was a wee boy of 12. So
Makes me feel old.
I just had to adjust my bifocals to
scratch that neck beard a little bit more. For me, I got into the hobby around the time the Lord of the Rings movies came out. I happened to be walking past the Games Workshop at the time. They had a really cool-looking Lord of the Rings display with some Minas Tirith versus Mordor. And had a little intro game, and that was the start of a very, very long hobby journey. 20 years later, I do a bit of everything. So Lord of the Rings was my jam for a very, very long time. But recently switching over to Test of Honor, War Master, very addicted to War Master at the moment. And then, as you will have heard, the great peer pressure from the previous episodes, I am now joining the bolt action train.
Encouragement.
You mean your second dip into it? You did join in with us the first time around back in first edition.
Yes, I remember. I had a very small US Army infantry. But here I'm going back into the airborne, focusing on my beloved airborne from the Band of Brothers series. So I'll be doing some Easy Company airborne for the Battle of Carentan.
Yeah,
very nice.
Excellent. Did you do any kind of hobby stuff before you found Lord of the Rings? Did you do
miniatures, No.
Model aircraft.
Yeah.
As a wee lad, I think I built a few Spitfires and things like that. But
as most people end up doing, we get the old Airfix kits.
Yeah, but Games Workshop was really the first introduction into wargaming.
Yeah.
And it stayed that way for quite a long time until I stopped working there and branched out into a few other companies.
Yeah. But for so many people, Games Workshop is their starting point because it's a location where you can go and do intro games, and it's something that a lot of hobby stores don't have the ability to do because they cover so many game systems.
It's a lot more visible because they have shops on on main streets or in shopping centers, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And you can go to some amazing places that stock, literally 50 different game systems, but you can't expect a staff member to be able to run an intro game for 50 different game systems.
Yeah. It was like that when I first started. There was a place, it was when I was living in Tasmania, in Hobart, called Area 52, and they had a massive Necromunda set up, and they had all the 40k stuff there. But they had a whole bunch of other bits and pieces, Warzone and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, it wasn't really that sort of place. So having somewhere like an actual GW, perfect.
Yeah.
Great starting point.
I was just thinking about starting points because GW is so often people's starting points. And then, as we said, like a couple of Airfix models here and there are very often on someone's kit. And then my brain just ran off of the notion because the other thing that we don't really count as models, but loads of people made those MDF dinosaur skeletons. Do you know those pop out kits?
Yeah. Do you guys remember? I was a really big dinosaur nerd growing up, and if you guys remember there was a series that came out that had like the 3D images, and you got the 3D little like red and green, red and blue glasses, red and green glasses, and have like the lenticulars with the 3D lenticulars in it. They had coming out with like a dinosaur, like a T-Rex skeleton. You had to build the skeleton and then put the skin on, like in the panels and stuff. Yeah, you're right. It is that kind of stuff. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of that stuff that's like Gorilla Miniatures introduction, like all the little pop out things and like fold them together and put their spine together. Yeah. So that's the snapshot of Andrew's hobby origins, and he has become well known in our hobby group for his speed and efficiency of painting. Which we'll talk about a bit more later on in 365. But additionally, his focus on Warmaster has been like a big driving point for the rest of us that are in Warmaster as well. So he will be the master of Warmaster within our group. Certainly of the rules. If you need to run a game of Warmaster, make sure Andrew is present.
Yeah, I've got one game against you so far.
Yeah,
it was a learning curve. So because you had the rules pretty much down pat, and I was still bumbling around trying to figure out how to command.
Yeah, well, I think Tim and I were about a dozen games deep by the time Dark Elves got on the field. So by the way, they also need to grace the field again.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I've still got the other half of the army. That's only like 1,000 points that I dragged out and got painted. So I've got the other half to do. That seems like something for me to finish off this year. So
there you go. That's one of your 365 games.
So that's our introduction to Andrew, and we might just wander over into having to talk about different things that have been on our hobby radars recently. Certainly when you get to the end of the year and Mitch is still going on his hobby challenge for 365 because that started in February for you?
February 17 is the end of it. So I've still got a bit over a month to go.
Yeah, cool. Andrew and I, having just sort of finished our timeline for it, have like gone back through and gone, right, here's where our goals are at, what we got done. And I don't know if it works the same for Andrew, but I find myself in a bit of a hobby void after that, where I've focused on so many projects that now I'm like, what do I actually want to do right now?
Yeah.
Which is kind of refreshing because I can paint whatever the hell I want and it doesn't matter. It's that pops into my head is valid to paint.
Or all those commissions. So
I have actually been doing a fair bit of work on the commissions at the moment. Good me. Normally I'm like, commissions are really tough. I've got to think really hard to do those. I'll just do something else in the meantime.
Yeah, it's definitely a big reset button after painting so much for so long and being so focused on it. It does take a big step back to go, okay, well, what do I want to do now?
Yeah. So what is standing out to you? What do you want to focus on at the moment?
For me, for the first part of the year, he's definitely going to be getting the Airborne built and painted. Definitely like to start rolling some dice, so I need to build the boys. I got a whole heap over Christmas, so looking to a lot of hobby building.
Excellent.
We've got a new game coming called Fjord Serpents, so that will be a lot of fun to paint. It scales perfectly with Warmaster, so that will be a nice little sneaky Norse army as well. And then just, I think, clearing out the backlog again. I really appreciated the 365 challenge just for getting through the pile of grey.
Yeah. But I guess because we've talked about it a couple of times, as a snapshot for people that don't know, last year kicked off a challenge called 365 Minis, or the 365 Challenge, when the idea was you had 365 days to paint 365 minis. And as the year went along, we sort of developed it a bit and realized that the goal we were appreciating most was that it was completing miniatures, not necessarily starting from scratch. And so that became the real thing. So it's complete 365 models You could try to do one model a day if you wanted, but most of us sit down and batch paint, X number of models over a week or whatever, or over a month.
Depending also how much time you have per day to do hobby.
Yeah.
Everyone's got things on, kids, work, different activities with with family, whatever it might be. It does soak up into your painting time. But at the end of the day, getting any progress is good, and that's certainly something that I've got out of this over this past year.
Exactly. Like there's no expectation that every single person that undertakes a challenge is going to complete that challenge. Goals are aspirational, and they're there to make us like strive for something. Certainly, the amount of competition between the three of us kept us
between you two guys, especially.
But it kept us burning, and I'm not normally that competitive, but if Andrew goes, someone's going to be first to the halfway point, then I'll be like, well, if Andrew says we're competing, then I got to get it back in the garage and get my paintbrushes moving.
And then my leads rapidly diminished as soon as Tim's competitive nature kicked in.
I had a couple of like strange little boosts in there where I was like falling behind because I did a commission where one of our friends, Lee, wanted like a War Master army done, but he didn't want it based. So I couldn't claim they were completed. And it was like 30 extra models for the challenge that weren't done. And then later on he went, I don't have time to base these. Can you do it? Like, yes! Suddenly base up an extra 30 points on the challenge. That was great.
Yeah.
So that it's different goals for each of us. I think Mitch is aiming for around the halfway point to finish off the year.
So as far as I get off more than I can chew. Eyes are way too big than my stomach or painting hands can handle. Because I don't have as much time to devote to painting in the evenings as maybe an hour or two a night if I'm lucky. I don't get to sit down on a weekend and just paint for 4 or 5 hours. It's a bit hard with kids doing stuff, going out. And especially over the Christmas period, I think we went out and rode their bikes or went to the pool every day that wasn't a public holiday. So by the time I got home, I was wrecked in the evenings. I still sit down, do a little bit of base coating, but I'm going to admit defeat. I can't make it to 365 doing what I want to have it done properly. I did put up a post on my Instagram about this. That I said, look, I can either half-ass 2 armies or do 1 army properly and not be asked with the other one.
That's a really important fact here is the whole point is to complete stuff that you're happy with, not to
pump out numbers,
break your standards to get stuff done. And certainly I've said in previous episodes of the podcast, some of my stuff is lower standard than I normally would. But it's not so low that I look at it and I'm like, I'm not happy with that.
Yeah,
you've got to find that middle ground.
100%. I think I figured that out pretty early on. Get to that 365 mark was very much falling back into that tabletop standard. Still a very good tabletop standard, but picking your battles, very much falling back to that. Okay, character gets a little bit of extra detail, but my rank and file are just going to be good enough that they look great on a table. But I think, like anything with the 365 challenge, like Tim said, it's all about making your own goals. So it doesn't need to be 365 minis. It's, what hobby can I do in 365 days?
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction for it, because having to the point where I'm at, I'll break over 200. Like, that's not a problem. I'll definitely get over there because I've got a month to finish off my my German army for bolt action. I've got it's going to take me a while to relayer all that white because there's an awful lot of white on those miniatures, and it's custom mixes for most of it because I couldn't get the exact colors I want. So it is still a fair amount of work for me to do, but chipping away at it an hour or two every night has really, especially, if I've got, the kids are all in bed, I don't have to cook, I don't have to clean the kitchen or anything. I've got just a time from about 8:30 to about 10:30.
No, you'll get there.
Solid 2 hours. So I'm going to get there with it. I'm going to break 200. And I will feel happier completing that army to the standard I want to do, because I'm a messy painter. I get a lot of overbrush. I have to go back and do a lot of retouches before I can do shading and all that kind of stuff. So I find it harder to paint really quick to a really high standard unless I'm doing a single model. If I'm doing a single model, I can sit there and I can paint and I can smash that out, no problem. But that's doing custom, 3-stage highlighting, that kind of stuff. I'm only concentrating on one. I get a bit overwhelmed with the larger batches, but doing it sort of, okay, all the SMGs in this group, all the assault rifles in this group, all the rifles in this, all the heavy weapons in that. I just concentrate and do those groups.
Yeah.
That's worked out better for me. So I've still got tanks to do. So yeah, there's still a few things that I've got to get done for it to get that done, but I'm not going to get to the 365, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my decision to not do it. But moving forward, that means for next year, seeing a lot of people on Instagram talking about what they're not looking at doing a whole 365 miniatures. They've got, I want to do, I saw one which was like, I want to complete this army, this army, this army. I've got 10 models in that. I've got 15 in that sort of thing. And even Brad was talking on the Cast Ice episode he did as the wrap up for the year about how he wants to do something similar to that. He's not looking at doing a whole 365 miniatures. A miniature a day can be possible if you've got the time to do it. Or, sometimes you can sit down and paint 20 miniatures with no problem at all because it's all like night goblins, single piece night goblins or skeleton infantry or something like that. But then if you're painting knights with individual heraldry, like out of a Bretonian army, or you're painting freehand on all of the shoulder pads for all of your Space Marines, doing the symbols or whatever it might be, you'll still camouflage patterns like on Germans, like painting Fallschirmjäger, for example. Yes, says Tim, looking a bit like. So it's one of those things that doing that will take more time because it's much more fine detail work. So,
I think I liken this a lot to conversations we had with people back at GW when we were running tournaments in the store, because it was a very sort of friendly local tournament scene. Yeah. But then we get some folks would rock up and go, I brought my meta-busting superpower list because I want to play a tournament. And I was like, well, this is a tournament where everyone's like literally scored on sportsmanship by everybody else. And that's one of the top prizes. It's not a meta-busting high competition one. And they're like, well, you really should be doing those, Tim, because I was manager at the time. I got this feedback from a couple of them that really what they wanted to do was go and smash a CanCon tournament or a Moab tournament and compete that way.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we have 1,000 different tournaments across the year, so everyone can choose what they're doing. And the same for hobby challenges. If you're not a 300 models in a year kind of person, then like bravo to Mitch, for example, for giving that a shot this year and going, cool, I made that my goal, and he's gotten damn close. Like 200 models a year is a solid effort.
I think it'll end up being about 220.
See, that's gold.
So,
and that's 220 more than you would have done before.
Like I shared in our group, I've done more hobby in the last year than I have done, like as far as painting, than in the last 5.
Yeah.
So in fact, even since my eldest one, so it's almost 7 years. I think I've done more. Like the most I've painted before this was our Moab tournament armies that I've painted over a couple of years, and that was like 50 models a year.
Yeah.
So to paint 200, like even to the point that I'm at now, like it's 155, whatever it is, 160 models. That's still more than those two armies combined that I've painted just this year alone.
When you said you were going to admit defeat, I was like, it doesn't feel like a defeat so much because you've got so much done out of it. But I understand, like in terms of meeting that specific goal. But then for next year, you might go, cool, the 365 challenge as a numerical challenge might not be your scene, but you can be like, right, but for my 365 days of the year, what are my hobby goals going to be? And set yourself a terrain goal or an army goal or whatever. And I think it's really important to have goals and stick to them so that we actually go, like, what am I trying to get done? And that's a big part of where the competition between Andrew and me in the numerical side of things was a big driving factor, because we were so often like neck and neck these like benchmark points along the line. That made us accountable to each other for those numbers.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it.
Well, it was really inspiring to see you guys doing the work, especially with the race going forward, like, race to halfway and then going up from there. And as far as the work that Andrew's done, like you've painted your War Master Bretonians for it, which, mind you, actually have heraldry on them, like individual colours. So you spent a lot of time getting those done to have every knight has their own heraldry or a combination of the colours. Is that right?
Yeah. So I probably did about 3/4 of the knights with individual heraldry, and then switched over to a couple of units of household knights in the one colour. Yeah, that was a slog. Even at 10 millimeter, that is a slog to go through and think of that many combinations.
Yeah.
I had pieces of paper where I'd drawn out different kind of heraldry schemes and color combinations to try and work through.
Well, it's handy to keep track of a color scheme like that if you're doing over a massive army, like quite a large amount of miniatures.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very refreshing once those were done to switch into the Empire and just do a solid uniform army.
Gold.
Yeah. So with some of the stuff that you have worked on, what have you actually completed for the year as far as the miniatures?
Yeah. Okay. So if I look at the 365 challenge, I completed. I'd say probably 3/4 of my Bretonian army. A solid
3,000 points.
Yeah, solid 2.5 hour, nearly 3,000 points. I've got a few units left over just for variety in the army, which I'll hopefully plug out in the first half of this year. A solid 2,000 points of Empire for Warmaster. We started a Japanese Samurai game, Test of Honor, about halfway through the year, and I managed to knock out two warbands for that are mostly completed. Again, a little bit of leftovers to finish off.
The first victims of 365 for next year.
Yes, exactly. Just lots of scattered hobby. So, finishing off little terrain pieces that I'd half started, or, obviously Master was fantastic for the terrain. I really sunk my teeth into 10 millimeter terrain. Mm-hmm. So I think I completed probably over 100 pieces of terrain boards.
Yeah. Nice.
Which was phenomenal. But yeah, it was really, really good just to get rid of that pile of shame that's been sitting on the desk for long.
Yeah. That helps me justify new items.
Yeah, well, or you just go next to the cupboard of shame, like I've got, that's just filled with half-done projects or bits and pieces. So yeah, I think having bits and pieces left over from armies from last year to work on gives that extra bit of motivation. So yeah. So what have you got up on your sort of scheduling there, Tim?
Well, I haven't really set any specific goal for what I'm working on next year, aside from getting some of my night goblins done, just because I find them very refreshing. And I had a game with one of our other mates, Otherly, 2 days ago, actually. And nice. We played a 3,000 point game of Old World, and I busted out my night goblins for that. But he was like, so, 365 challenge, when do you start? And I was just like, start in the new year or whenever you start. So he's going to join in and try to go for that as well.
Nice.
And then a couple of our old customers, Sam and someone else, got in touch through one of the socials or something to find out when it started. Was that you?
Yeah. So Sam, I put a thing up about how I was, wasn't going to complete it, but I was looking to do the next one. He asked a question or two about it. So yeah, like essentially this is just for people to sort of get in to do any kind of hobby over the year, whatever it might be. If you reach 365 miniatures or individual pieces of terrain or whatever it might be, fantastic. You have completed a ton of painting for the year. A ton, regardless of what the level that you paint it to is. If you've completed it and you go, I am happy with that, you're done. That's good.
And so if you're sharing like hashtags on your social media work, then it means other people that are following those tags can see where your progress is up to and go, oh, that reminds me, I've got to go paint. And all of that makes us accountable for like our own goals. If you see someone else's terrain pop up because you're following, Mitch had a 365 challenge hashtag on some of his stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're following that one, then you can see all of Mitch's work and his progress and get reminded, I've actually got to put down my PlayStation controller, go in the other room and pick up a paintbrush, or finish building. Like if you've got a building goal, if you want to start a new game this year, and that's one of your challenges, then great. Follow some hashtags, get those reminders, get inspired, because all the pictures, every time you guys posted something, I was like, yeah, look at that, that's awesome, and it got me all G'd up. And any little bit of feedback that we get through our social accounts on those as well makes us go, oh yeah, people have noticed what I'm doing. I could put in a bit more effort to that.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, I need to be a bit more accountable this year on using those 365 hashtags. So taking the lead from these two, I had my own hobby Instagram that I started, which was Dutchy for Gissero. So no, Dutchy of Gissero. Little follow in there if you can. But yeah, so I was keeping all my posts up there, lots of hashtags for Warmaster, but dropping those 365 ones a little bit more accountable, because that race will be on again with Tim and I.
Well, and luckily, true to my ADHD brain, I've got so many projects that I started last year and got halfway through. I'm like, I'm going to smash out some numbers early on. And I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but often I get like big waves of productivity and then I'll have gaps in between, which means sometimes my posts aren't as consistent, but it also means when I do post, I'm like, oh, I had a weekend off, so I finished 200 Germans or something. Like I've got base coats and a lot of details on almost my entire French army for Colmar. And that means if I just put the last few base layers on in a wash, then they're 50% done, and that's about 100 guys almost ready again.
Yeah, I've not been keeping up with posting through my own page or through the Be About a Brush for my actual hobby one. I get very bogged down in just doing the painting, and I forget to do it. I'll take some photos and I'll send it to the group chat, and then I go, I got to make a post, and then off that goes. Like it's gone. So I'm going to try and do a bit more posting because I find that I got to sit there and I'm going to try and figure out, especially when I have like music in the background, I've got to pick a song that's relevant, sort of thing. So I will sometimes spend more time doing that than I will actually spend doing the painting.
But that's half the fun of the post, Mitch, finding a really good backtrack for the one little reel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I have used Body Jar's Hazy Shade of Winter a lot for my Germans. I'm trying to find something new, but it's such a good song.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that probably wraps up most of our 365 details. Unless, Mitch, did you want to go through some of what you've been working on for yours to get to where you are?
So I was still getting the Germans finished off, and like I said, that's going to be my goal to finish those off completely for the year. I won't reach 365 miniatures, but I'll be much happier with what I've done for there. For this next year, I am still going to join in with 365 days of hobby. So it might be a bit scattered still, like normal, but my night goblins that I had started, I dragged all out, and my kids like playing with them, so they spent a fair bit of time fighting imaginary battles on the tabletop while I was spraying them up. I've got those done, undercoated. I've got to give them like a hit of black over the top to get into all the crevices the spray didn't reach, and going to do slap chop on those. Going to give that a try for those night goblins, because that night goblin army I've had for 16 years. I've got some Forge World miniatures, got a Colossal Squig. I've got the bots, like the Squig Gobblers. I've got 2 of those to use for artillery pieces. So I'm going to get those done up. And if I did just that alone, just that amount of miniatures that I've got there, it's about 160 miniatures. So that would put me pretty much a good portion to halfway in one army. I've also got, especially with Old World and the Empire book coming out, I've got my entire Empire army that I've had also for years, and one of the units in those is just 50 greatswords. So combined with everything else, I'm like, I've got probably another 120 plus miniatures there easily to do. So just in those 2 armies alone, for an Age of Sigmar goblins and my Empire for Old World, it puts me good way up. But I've also got a few other things I want to do. I want to do Silver Bayonet. I've got my warband for that, and some. I actually haven't pinned down exactly what I'm doing for my challenge overall, but I want to include also doing some tables for our Colmar games, but also so they can be used for some Silver Bayonet games set in essentially the Colmar pocket still during that time period. Or in the Canadian wilds, like we've used. I'm going to make some of the terrain is going to be purpose. So there'll be downtime building and painting. I did want to do like 4 or 5 boards maybe, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do all that amount of terrain.
Speaking of biting off more than you can chew,
right.
4 or 5 terrain tables is a lot. But I love the enthusiasm.
Yes,
look, I'm biased because I really want your snowy tables to be done so that we can play Silver Bayonet on them, because I really want to get all of our like Canadian like skirmishes and stuff going on.
And have like random polar bears and like moose and stuff like that running through causing problems. That'd be great.
I hadn't thought about moose, but yes.
Well,
I'm all about that.
Looking at some 3D prints, Andrew. If you can get some stuff. Looking at getting some 3D print STLs done up for that, for a few of the things that show up, like Wendigos and stuff like that. So awesome. I got a lot of stuff I want to do, but whether I actually do it is another matter, because there's always life, video games, that kind of stuff. So yeah,
and new systems that we haven't even discovered yet.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, have you guys found anything new recently that you've really caught your eye?
Yeah, we'll have a quick chat about some inspiring new systems. I've been doing my level best to avoid Trench Crusade and to tell you to stay firm and not look at it whenever you bring it up.
Honestly, there is that much stuff on my social media about Trench Crusade. It's really hard to steer clear of it.
Um, for me, we had a chat in our group chat the other day. We're like, oh, this new system's looking really cool. And I was like, I've got to be focused this year because otherwise the pile just keeps growing. So my big focus is completing stuff and feeling good about the completion. So my Old World Army, the Night Goblins, Silver Bayonet, and my Bolt Action Forces are my big focus.
Yeah.
And then I'll scatter in some Fallout stuff around there because I've been really enjoying the Fallout stuff recently.
Yeah.
But there are already game systems that are new-ish, like the Fjord Serpents. So I'm really looking forward to getting some of that. Andrew and I split one of their starters, got some extra little cool stuff in there. And we're going to mix some of the Warmaster terrain through so we can have like little islands with farmsteads on them and stuff.
I think that'd look fantastic. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to have a couple of like reinforced positions, like just a little watchtower here or there. So if you do sail your ship too close, you're going to come under fire by flaming arrows from the local Jarl's
That'd
watch
be
post.
sweet. Yeah.
Stuff like that would be really cool. So Fjord Serpents is the only real new game system, but I want to refresh some of the game systems that we started last year, like Silver Bayonet.
Yeah.
We started it and then we got distracted by Test of Honor and we didn't give it the love that it deserved. And it's a really cool setting and a really cool system. So I really
love it. It's great. And especially with the new Calabria book that's coming out for the Italian campaign. And there's also a new one that got announced that someone had spotted the page on Amazon for, one set in Britain, which leans in pretty well for you, Andrew, considering you got a British force.
Yes.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they bring out for that.
Yeah. So that's my main focus is not so much new systems because there's way too many cool new things around.
Yeah.
Like we talked about the Guards of Trader's Toll recently.
Yeah.
One where we can use a lot of existing collections that we have, but it seems like a cool way to use.
Yeah, and if anything, considering that it was done as got his name,
Grand Navy.
That's it.
Yeah. Test of Honor.
Yeah, he did Test of Honor, and that's a very nice game system. It's going to be very interesting to see how the game plays out and everything like that. So.
Did either of you have systems or games that you're just excited about? Not necessarily new ones, but things that you're just really pumped for this year?
So, I mean, as much as we're not Age of Sigmar currently, it is one of those things that I've still got my Kharadron Overlords army, and I haven't finished that off. I've done a bunch of units here and there that are like completed or 3/4 completed. So I'm looking at getting some of that done just to have it done. But there's always new stuff coming out. And believe me, I'm bombarding you guys with stuff like, oh, I found this. Oh, I found that. Highland Miniatures, which I've got some of their dwarves for, that I've got some STLs for, some of the human stuff as well. They've got a game coming out called Deathberg, which is steampunky kind of sort of feel to it, but it's more set. It's set in like just a city where death is always a constant. And I shared the rule set they put out for it with you, and like you have like defensive and offensive settings, for your troops and things like that. Right. So that looks kind of interesting. It's another skirmish game. I mean, we've played Mordheim for years. I'll always build Mordheim warbands because they're just fun. You can have it's a small a way to paint a good little group of figures up without having to go, I'm building a 2,000 point army. It's like, I got 10 dudes. I just need those 10 dudes. Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to that. I did stumble across Urban War, which is a game that I played back in 2005 to 2007. Had a lot of fun playing that. That's got a 3rd edition coming out recently, which is cool. The miniatures kind of look the same. Like they've still kept, someone's still got the molds for it, which is cool because it has some cool little characterful figures. I got rid of all my stuff apart from like a couple of figures. which I'm now kicking myself for because they're actually really cool to use for games like Stargrave, which I also want to play.
Yeah.
Don't laugh, Andrew. I've already got the rule book for it, so it's not that it's new.
I just giggle about your ever-changing focus, which is usually preceded by a message in our group chat going, I really need to focus on just a couple of systems this year. Oh, look at this one, and this one, and that one, and this one.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really bad at that. So it's when it's that piece of candy kind of thing. Like I get distracted way too easily with stuff because,
right.
I mean, look, I could ramble on for at least another 10 minutes about stuff that I've seen. Conflict 47 getting a new edition coming out this year. I know we're going to get into it. You've already got a few things ready to go, Tim, for something like that. I mean, it's not hard to add in some extra bits and pieces for the armies that we're currently working on. I can keep going, but I think I'll stop.
So if anybody out there is looking to trap Mitch, then you just need to leave a trail of enticing Instagram images about new systems, and he will follow along one step after the other and fall into your trap.
It's not hard.
No.
It's not hard at all.
Andrew, we covered most of the systems that you are keen on for this year, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I think for me, I just try to find hobby relevance. So what is actually going to fit into the group that we play in, but also I think we're all now at the point in our kind of hobby journeys where the garages are overfilling with the amount of hobby that we have. So I try to find games now that either are contained to a small group of miniatures. So things like Silver Bayonet was great. One purchase and I'm done now. I don't need to get anything else. Fjord Serpents is pretty contained. But even things like I'm really looking forward to Guards of Trader's Toll. It just looks really interesting. I love the concept of you versus the game. But also the fact that even though the miniatures look really cool, once again, Graham has done an amazing job with how he sculpts and gets them produced. But I don't need anything for it. I get the rulebook, I'm done. So I think that for me is going to be a lot of bolt action, finishing War Master, finishing the things that we've got, and then maybe one or two things that are relatively self-contained.
Yeah.
There are a lot of little indie games that are out there for that, like Turn of 28. There's one called Scavs, which is like weird, crazy ships in that sort of Turn of 28 kind of universe sort of thing. But the guy who does it has just recently released an expansion which allows you to play as like 1980s cosmonaut crewed ships in space. Cool. Like I said, it's not hard to distract me from stuff because I'll see a post on Instagram and go, oh, that looks cool, and I'll just go and download the free rulebook for it. Yeah, look, there's a bunch of little like games that are brought out by some of these indie producers that are really cool. Like miniature production, there's a lot of different 3D sculpts out there as well. So look, a lot of stuff. I'm well distracted. You guys need to keep me on track.
Well, we might wrap it up by saying we'll try to enthuse each other in the right directions.
Yeah.
And keep us all making progress that we want to make. I think that's going to bring us to the end of that little section. I'm really excited about 2025 and all the different hobby that we're going to do. I'm sure you all are as well. We'd love to hear from anybody out there listening on our various socials about what they're doing for 2025, what their goals are, what they're hoping to achieve.
I look forward to taking the 365 trophy back from Tim this year. He may have won the 365, but I did win overall volume. So.
Absolutely. I meant to say, sorry, like the goal is just to get it done in that time. And so as far as I'm concerned, neither of us won because we both got 365 done in 365 days. That's 2 winners.
The last couple of days were nail biting, trying to who was going to say first they'd finish that 365.
So I did complete earlier than Andrew, but Andrew did more models overall by about 4. I had a whole bunch of commission stuff lined up, ready to go. And I was just like, nah, he's worked so hard for it. And
a pity victory.
No, not even that. I was like, I could actually break myself trying to get this done. I was like, I really don't want to paint right now. I just don't want to do it. And I would only be doing it to try to beat Andrew. And I was like, nah, he's earned it. That's fine. I'm not going to make myself angry at hobby just to try to get past Andrews. And so I painted when I had time and I got close, but I didn't beat Andrew to the total. So 403, I think.
403.
Yeah. And 399 was where I got up to.
Very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So congratulations all around for everyone for their massive hobby efforts. And Mitch, we look forward to seeing what you finish up in your last 2 months.
Yeah, well, yeah, hopefully I can get this done. So otherwise,
Well,
yeah.
you've got your halfway prize still waiting in the garage for you.
Yeah, I know, because I still haven't cracked that 187 mark.
You're
Yeah.
close.
I'm
You're
so close. I'm so close. I'm hoping over the next 3 weeks I can get it done, and maybe I'll round out, through to the end of my my time period just with like a couple extra models from different, or maybe my silver bayonet stuff. I don't know. I'll figure that out.
All right. Well, that's what's on our hobby tables at the moment.
And welcome back to State of the Game. So here we're going to have a quick chat about some of the stuff we've seen with the new Germany book coming out. It's going to be released this month. So excited for that. And also the teaser we've had for the new armies of the US.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool stuff to dig into here. With the German book, we had a chat last time about some of the things that were brought out on the article for like the different list types, the SS, Sturmjäger, and the Fallschirmjäger units, and also a little bit about some of the new units they put in there, the Saboteurs, the Fifth Colonists, that sort of thing. Still really excited for those. I'm interested to see what other stuff they put in as well. So it'll be, there's I like the idea of having some of those little extra flavor bits. But one thing they did also show us for the teaser articles was early, mid, and late war unit options, in the profiles. So, and this is for me, I think it's quite a cool idea because it does mean that we can say, yes, you're playing an early war list. You can only pick things marked with the E marking on it. So it means you don't have any more people going, well, I'm going to take, a Panzer II in my late war army because I just need the points to fill out. I need another armored vehicle and nothing else fits, sort of thing. So.
It just occurred to me when you were speaking, actually, that it would be a cool way to organize narrative events and tournaments potentially, because quite often the early war armies struggle against late war armies. Not universally, but quite often, like it's a notable drop off in the availability of specialist gear, especially for tank hunting gear. And so you could do some very easy narrative events where you're just like, right, everybody bring an early war army for this one, or we're going to play for like games clubs. If you just said, right, we're going to do all mid-war games this weekend, and then bring your late war stuff next weekend. We'll actually do 3 consecutive weekends where we do early, middle, and late war sort of timeline production.
That kind of narrative side of it will help out immensely if you're trying to get people into a certain time period, certain settings. I think overall for a lot of the lists, seeing this for the Germans does give hope for the US, the British book, that kind of thing, the Soviet book as well. There's a lot of stuff in the Soviet era which was basically the same the whole way through. But it's when you start getting into the late war with the heavier tanks and things like that, it does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certain versions can only be used during certain time periods. That sort of thing. Same with like the German book. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with more of that going forward.
I think it'll also help provide a soft army list for theming. For not everybody has the time to research every battle and go, what did these troops actually have? But you can say, we're going to play Battle of the Bulge, and I just want to use early, mid, or late war, depending on when that is in the timeline, and just let that be your overall army list structure. Because that way you're not going to be too far off. Like we've had a lot of talks about Colmar lists where there was a particularly beastie tank that is in your collection, which might not have exactly been in that neighborhood, but it was certainly neighborhood adjacent. And it could have.
Yes, my ahistorical tiger.
It could have rolled the historical mile down the road to join in. And so we can squeeze that bit of history a little bit when we want to.
So like I suppose it comes down to with the army list selection. I suppose it's also lead into with the American forces, like for Andrew's doing for his army. It depends on if the books go, okay, here's your theatre selector, it includes these, and it'll all be this exact thing, and that's all you can have. Or whether it goes, you can have an army themed as early, mid, or late, and you can have anything marked with E, M, or L, whatever it might be. But if you want to do a specific Battle of Stalingrad or Battle of Carentan or D-Day landings, Utah Beach, whatever it might be, if you have that list, it'll go, yes, you can take this, this, and this, but you're restricted to having one of these, or you cannot take this late war vehicle variant because it just was not flat out there.
Cannot take the laser rifle upgrade or whatever.
No, you can't have Panther terms. You can't have night vision on your SS. That kind of thing. There's a lot of different things like that I think the good thing to have these distinctive periods in it, so you don't get too much of the whole. Well, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take this multi-launcher brigade, even though that wasn't actually used during that time period because they were too mobile or whatever it might be. There's a lot of different factors that I think will go into it, but it's interesting to see that they're going to have it split up that way.
A helpful guide kind of thing. Much as you just said, you can theme based off the time period, and you can theme based off the theatre and the location.
I hope that's how it works
those two. Yeah. Well, even just because they've said using the old source books, particularly the campaign books, they've all got theatre selectors in them to theme for those areas as well. So
very
you
true.
Can still use those as your guide. You might. It changes up the way the platoon selector is used because the old lists are based off the old reinforced platoon. So we'll just have to see when the first couple of books come out how it goes. But I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's handy.
Yeah,
it helps with theme.
Yeah,
thumbs up for me.
Definitely thumbs up for me. So, as someone coming into it new, Andrew, what's your take on it as far as seeing what you had in the past, where you had a bit more of the free flexibility as far as taking whatever you wanted in like an old version 1 army. You still have the basic restrictions, but to something now where you have like an actual early, mid, late war, and especially considering you're doing many paratroopers, how it's going to affect you.
Yeah, look, I think I always like these type of things because it brings in kind of historical balance versus gameplay at the same time. As you said, like I'm looking at D-Day up to +10 really for Carentan. So my selection is going to be very much based off that, which would probably struggle against something going up against one of your Colmar armies a little bit later on, a little bit more technology, a little bit more armor. I'm relying on an AT gun really to get me through. I think that these do bring a lot of balance, but for me, I love the narrative side of any game. So the ability to really drill down on that narrative that I want to create for an army or that my opponent wants to create for their
having that early, mid, late structure to it, I think is going to help out a lot of people if they if they're a bit indecisive about what time period they want to do. It does help sort of break it down a bit more for them.
It can also really make getting into the game a little easier for people because you're not trying to struggle and think, okay, well, what was in what era? If my friend gets me, this late war Pershing, can I actually use it? Oh no, I couldn't use it in that I wanted to design.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're looking at this, you get a very limited selection of, okay, these are the things that I can work with. I don't need to struggle. I don't worry about buying the wrong thing.
Yeah, I suppose it does help out in that case for people buying a gift or, wanting to get their mates into something. You go, look, I've got this era. I'm not going to say, hey, you should get this early war, early war British force, which is all just rifles and machine guns and like paper tanks.
Yeah. Have fun with your boy's anti-tank rifle against my Tiger.
There's a lot of shots spanging off the front armor of that thing. So I suppose it does help as well if you're doing any kind of like we're doing with the opposing forces, having that setting and go, okay, for that time period, anything up until this point during that late war, selector, look at the dates of service for the vehicles, because some of the older books will still have the dates of service. So, that's always a good way of doing it too.
The early, mid, and late war stuff is going to be very handy for theming, very handy for army list writing and for shopping list writing in that respect.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that we got after the German previews was the US Army preview. We've talked a lot about the areas that we think are going to flow over and the things that they told us, like the universal special rules for different specialist troops like Fallschirmjäger, Gebirgsjäger, and how you can upgrade other units to have those rules as well. I'm very excited to see how those apply to the new US troops, because I think the airborne basically have two types at the moment. You can have glider airborne and paratrooper airborne, and the gliders don't really have a bonus special rule. I think they're still veterans.
Yeah, they're still veterans.
So being able to, for Andrew's army, for example, he's got mostly infantry, but he's got a couple of AT guns in there, and then being able to have stubborn AT guns holding on as they can.
Things like your snipers, even just your officers having stubborn as well, because like with a lot of the original books that came out, there wasn't an option for it unless you took a certain selector. I mean, it'd be the same with, like, would they look at doing as far as the selector do, like, okay, you take paratroopers is one of the force types, so you get to add in the stubborn for the extra point, whatever it might be. The Marines get one in there, they get something else. So I suppose it's down to what other options within the books themselves as well. So as far as unit options, will that make a difference? Will it be will it be a paratrooper list almost entirely, so it actually has, some of the weapons would require one less person because of the high level training, that kind of thing. So
I've noticed that there are those options for just adding crew or removing crew on some of the emplacements at the moment.
And that was definitely hinted at in that US article as well. There was a lot of focus on airborne and Marines in that announcement. That's a sign of things to come there in the book, that be some specific theming.
Very excited. Well, models wise, the latest kit from Warlord has been the veteran German kit, which is very easy to use as engineers, pioneers.
Yeah, you can make pioneers out of it. Even just a basic squad of German veterans anyway, just with rifles, you can still make it quite easily.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've got plastic flamethrowers in that kit is a huge benefit to anyone doing an engineer-focused list, because you can mix those parts through with other basic German kits. They've got AT rifles and stuff in there too, and they're modelled up a little bit more on the early war side of things, but it's like early to mid.
The uniform looks like it'd fit well if you're doing like a Fall of France or that kind of thing. It feels like it would fit better for that time period. You can see if they start doing that in the new American kit they're bringing out.
Why I brought it up, because I'm like, well, let's take some cues from this, because even the French plastic kit isn't that old, and I've been using that for the Colmar infantry, but it has loads of extra stuff in it so you can equip them as engineers. So it's just got little wire cutters on belts and like AT mines on backpacks and stuff. Rope bundles and things and cable cutters and all kinds of stuff. Needs a crowbar, then I can go full Half-Life on it. But it seems like a lot of these boxes are now getting a few extra items in them so that you can just go, well, I'm going to pay the upgrade for engineers. I'm going to pay the upgrade to make them specialists, to fit some of those new roles from the new platoon selector. And very much wait to see what these new was a D-Day era airborne plastic kits will bring, because potentially if we're looking at D-Day, the stuff that the airborne were doing is very different from the stuff that the Rangers and the GIs were doing. If they brought out a Ranger kit now, you might see Bangalores and stuff in there for breaching and clearing and parts.
They redid the kit recently for the Rangers.
I thought they had bazookas, but I don't know.
It had the Bangalore.
Okay, great.
I do know it does have the heads from all the different Saving Private Ryan characters, so you can even have poor old Vin Diesel getting killed on the killed it at the end.
That's why we don't take kids.
Yeah, exactly.
But potentially then you can just go, right, well, which of those two kits should have engineering parts in it and be easily made into an engineer unit for particularly in my mind, it's because we've got a lot of these platoons, like the engineers platoon, where you need to have units that can be take that platoon at all.
Yeah.
And particularly if you're a Soviets, for example,
Yeah.
that means you've got to have units that can take it. And I think currently, do they have any units that can take the engineer
So
keyword?
you got the Soviet engineer squad itself, which it's just essentially a squad of guys. Like they
Yeah.
don't have to have any special upgrades. The metal kit that is available for it, they do have a mixture of SMGs, a
Sure.
couple of Panzerfaust, that kind of thing. They come with the body armor, so which is an upgrade. I think it's 5 points now. I think from memory, but making them only be killed on a 6 because they're already veterans. So the body armor just means it's the -1 for the to small arms fire.
Yeah.
Means against most shots, yeah, they're going to be surviving, but it's a lot of points to sink into it.
Yeah.
You could quite literally just take regular basic guys and go, yep, they're my engineers.
Yeah, cool.
So maybe add a couple of extra bits of equipment or a backpack or something like that if you've got bits and pieces lying around that can work. The flamethrowers, like, so I've got a flamethrower. I love using my flamethrower. It does not love me, but it is one of those things that the thrower itself will actually go through and take and be included in the squad of the Soviet engineers, or you can take it as a separate squad. Some other flamethrowers can only be taken as a separate item. Your engineer squads won't have it.
Yeah.
So, or I think the Italians get to take 2 flamethrowers in theirs. Like it's within the actual engineer squad.
It's quite spicy.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll see some new and exciting stuff. I'm even just spitballing and predicting here. What kind of stuff would we be expecting to see in an airborne plastic squad for D-Day now? Because I know there's some weapons restrictions here.
So like an airborne squad at the moment, LMG or if you want them to be, they've got all the separate, light mortars and all that sort of thing. I'd love to see maybe some old metal kits, combined into the plastics. So maybe having some light mortars on the sprue. It could even be to introduce some specialty things like maybe a recoilless rifle. I'm very interested to see what they do. Took a little bit of shine off the old Christmas haul. I just decided to get into it. I just decided to go with my easy company. Got everything, and then I think it was the day after Christmas. The article came out. Here's a brand new Karahi box.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Little hint there as well about some resin character models. So that puts all those ones that I sourced probably to shame. But it's also, for me, I think it's an opportunity. I would love to grab a new box of those infantry just to mix in with all those ones that I've got, especially just to see what those extra options are.
Yeah.
Because I think, if you look at the German box, it's definitely giving you a lot more options to make more things, which is just handy. Those metal models might be a little bit harder to find or a little bit more expensive if they're in that plastic box.
Yeah.
Options.
Well, based off the Battle of the Bulge box, we're looking at both sides in the Battle of the Bulge, the Fallschirmjäger and the winter US troops, sorry. There's parts in there for medics, for artillery observers, air observers, officers. There's almost always one scoped rifle in there, so you can do a sniper team.
Yeah.
And then loads of different rifle arms, loads of different SMGs. I don't think the airborne had quite so many SMGs. I think you can take like 3 off in a squad.
You can have 3 in a squad. I think there was only 2 on the frame. There was no scoped rifle, but there was one old bolt action rifle. So you can easily put a scope on it.
Yeah.
But as Tim said, it'd be nice to just have those models.
Well, that might be the potential for you, is that you can then go through and go, right, well, I actually do want an extra sniper team, an extra thing. I would love to see light mortars in there. They fit a lot of the action from Band of Brothers. There's a lot of light mortars, especially episodes like the Crossroads, where they're running up to get those things in position. And we know they can fit them. There's plastic light mortars in the British army kits, and they're just like slung across backpacks, or there's lying down ones for loading them up. So a lot of options that we could see in this new airborne kit that would be very exciting.
Not only that, I think with the fact on most German kits you have LMGs in there, like already in there for it to be like squad support. But then you don't necessarily need to have a specific mount up one. You could have one on the move and still have just two guys running in attendance. That's what I've done with one of my MMG squads. So having something like that for on the airborne kit, having the 30 cal have someone you could actually, even if you had a set of arms, and this would be really cool, actually having the set of arms would actually go over the back the way they were carrying them, like you see in the show, with like the two off the that sort of like three pronged sort of like base plate, have the two over the back sort of thing, and have them actually carry it on. It might be a bit hard to line like the arms and the hands up, but that would be something very, very cool.
Well worth doing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we really got teased for the US stuff. It's still very exciting. And I think they said there was another plastic kit in the works, but they didn't give any other details.
Yeah, they were pretty cagey on what they're working on, that it was still mostly in development. So we'll probably see some more over the next month. I mean, the US book's still quite a ways off. It goes on pre-order this month, but I don't believe it's out.
I saw April.
So it's still a long way to go. So we still got a lot of teasers to come.
True, but it does give hope with what they're doing as far as the new books are concerned, with like the way they're sort of having them set up. You force, whether it goes for selectors or just go early, mid, late, whatever it is. I think with the new kits coming out, it allow older kits that have been around for the last 13 years or so, or since it came out, things like the Soviet kit or like the original British kit that came out. They've gone through and they've brought out like the 8th Army one. They've updated them over the years. But some of the original kits that came out, having those extra options now on those frames to make more of the units, means they're leaning away from the resin or the metal side. Well, everything's kind of going over to the warlord resin. Leaning more away for that for the bulk of your army. It's only your very specialized troops which you actually need to pick up.
Which, look, isn't a bad thing. I mean, some of the metal sculpts are really starting to show their age in comparison to the new plastic stuff. It's a good chance to kind of reach the range.
Without having a full reboot going, cool, all your old stuff is trash. This is all new stuff. This is new hotness, a la, Primaris Marines kind of thing. So, it's good to see that they're planning ahead with that, and I'm looking forward to what comes out for the Soviet book when they start bringing some information about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, look, while we're on the topic of the state of the game, Andrew, as someone who's just got back into bolt action and you've played your first 2 games, just one,
yeah.
Right. What are your thoughts coming back at bolt action? Because you're quite a seasoned game player overall, and I don't know if you played more than 2 or 3 games back last time when we got into it.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a game that I never really hugely got into. No particular reason. I just sunk my teeth into it.
Wasn't your focus at the time.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. I think I always kind of fall back on evil and fantasy is kind of always my jam, rather than historics, but little bit of airborne action, and I think that's probably what has got me back in this time. Is I kind of knee-jerked the first one and just went, hey, I'll just do US infantry, whatever. There was no kind of work for me, whereas this one is more, I do really enjoy the Band of Brothers series. I do enjoy that after D-Day action. The first game that I played with Tim, it was really smooth. Everything's quite simple to understand. I found a really great reference sheet line, which really helped me afterwards just to cement some of the rules. But I think, I can't draw too many comparisons to first edition because I didn't play enough of it. But I found the rule set pretty straightforward. I was able to pick it up pretty quickly, putting aside the seasoned wargamer aspect. Being able to pick up the most of the basics in your first game means the rules, to be honest. I always like just the simple tiered things, where it's 4+5 plus 6+, depends on how experienced the troops are. It just makes it quite simple, quite streamlined, easy for anybody to get in.
Awesome. Well, the game that we played was very laid back.
Very illegal on the lists.
Oh yeah, we're just like whatever Andrew's got done, and we'll put some other stuff in. Unfortunately, his anti-tank emplacement was firing blanks the whole game.
It was their first day, 100%.
We literally just had it in there. We put some special rules to have a damaged Panzer IV on my side, just so there'd be some armor to shoot at. So I was moving half speed the whole game with my Panzer IV and like inching out around buildings, and we're using the ambush rules to take shots before it could fire, and everything just bounced off. It was try to set these things up so that you can experiment with them and see how something works. Nothing came of it.
I'm going to show you this really cool thing that this thing can do. One.
Well,
yeah.
I think, look, to sum it up, I think the fact that the Panzer managed to range into a 2+ kind of tells you how many times it failed to be wounded.
Yeah. That's it. So
Yeah,
but
that's
we did for a small game, I think it was 300 points maybe. It was basically a squad, an artillery piece, an MMG team, and like an officer on both sides.
Yeah.
And then I took all of my guys as inexperienced, but I took a Panzer IV with half movement speed. I think I treated one of the machine guns. No, I just forgot the Hitler's buzzsaw on the machine gun.
Yeah.
I think, look, the game really highlighted, though, the importance of cover in this edition. There was one that Tim moved some guys across the road that I had an MMG set up on in ambush, and it wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
But the rest of the game was very much, showing the importance of cover. A lot more survivability, a lot harder to kill.
Cover means you take pins. No cover means you take casualties. Yeah. And it was very true. Like 5 veterans with submachine guns were like, I'm just going to duck across this street. I'll only have to soak up 1 round of fire. And it was like, all right, well, 2 of you made it, and you're pinned all the hell now, and you've lost half your squad. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But everybody else down behind hedges, tucked in wherever they could. It was pretty impressive. Lots of, true to bolt action, lots of pivotal moments where Andrew would have to decide between breaking from cover to get around behind someone and ignore their cover, or staying where he was but firing to less effect. Like there was a lot of those good moments where you had to either gamble high or take a conservative move that had a less chance of success.
Yeah, it's the photos that you chucked up were quite like, I was like, I'll send me photos because I was in the middle of a family thing. So I was like, hanging out, looking at the photos for it. Look, it's one of those things that looked like you had a lot of fun playing it. Even for your first go at it of the new edition, even with minimal models, you can still have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's pretty much the state of the game. We might move on to some of our ongoing projects in the building of the bulge.
Yep.
Which,
next up.
Although a prolific builder in his own right, Andrew isn't specifically building towards the bulge that Mitch and I are. But
you're doing that on purpose now.
No, I'm just. This is just how I talk. However, so for those of you who know me, this is how I talk. But Andrew is kind of parallel to this. Is building a force for a themed army with a themed opponent, so we'll be able to tag him in for those things as well.
Yeah.
For me, for building the actual bulge forces, aside from flicking through some reference material, I haven't done any extra progress on my US or my French side of my guys for quite a while. I got base coats, base colors down on all of my French guys, but I've got to start picking out all the details before I wash them.
Yeah.
So that's where I got up to. It took me a while to nail down my color schemes, but I'm happy with where they're up to, and French are getting done first so that we can theme up our first battle.
Yeah, so we can start hitting that out. Yeah, look, I've as we've discussed a bit, we were talking about the 365 challenge. I've been working on my Germans. I haven't built anything new because I've built pretty much all the stuff I need for the army. I did do a little bit of extra research. I was flicking through some information, and it turns when I was looking at different vehicles to add in as part of our Secret Santa, our friend group does with our wives and other friends. The one thing I came across was Kettenkrads, the little having those run around. The Gerbungsjäger did actually use them. So I'm like, well, that's really quite cool because the area that we're fighting around is got hills. They did have some artillery pieces, not many shells for them, like we've discussed before, but did have light artillery pieces. And, if you're just dragging equipment up, ammunition, whatever, like, well, that'd be something really cool to chuck in there. So that I've got to get a Shrimmin wagon because I need something to run as a command vehicle in quote marks for my platoon. Although I'm still thinking I'm going to chuck the command vehicle being the Jag Tiger, and the Shrimmin wagon's just going to be buzzing around.
Extra vehicle.
Yeah, the extra vehicle because
if the driver's got binoculars, it's a commander.
Well, that or maybe like a little German half track like the 250, the 250s, the smaller ones. Using that and taking like a Stummel or with like the light howitzer just to give it a little bit extra firepower because it's small enough it can get around. Were they there? Look, I could take it as being part of the Volksgrenadier sport. Although I think you mentioned you've got a Stug going free.
I've got to stick around.
He goes stick around.
He's not going free. if someone else doesn't want to buy him, then he's got to. But no.
So you've got a Stug, and Stugs were there. They were part of the support for the Volksgrenadiers, so I could look at chucking one of those in. It's one of those things. I've got a few things I'm sort of playing around with, but not really much else apart from just getting the painting done. So, like I said, most of the way through, I got some of the basing material for Christmas that I need, which is like the AK Interactives wet ground.
Yeah, nice.
And then the diorama snow to make like for the snow drifts and things like that. So. I'm hoping between the two I can get to that muddy kind of looking ground with like piles of snow that you see in some of the source photos they've got in some of the books and some of the research we've done.
That sounds outstanding.
Yeah.
So I think we had a chat the other day where we were going to try to complete the number of models that we needed for our first campaign.
Yeah, it was like a little 500-point game or something like that. Yeah, it's
just like a little skirmishy thing. So I'm going to try to prioritize those for my list, and then we'll sort of build up from there. I think almost all of your army is perfect for that.
Yeah, so for most of the stuff you've written so far, what I've got can just be added in. If it does break the like platoon structures, I mean we can kind of work with that. Yeah. So it really just comes down to what we decide to do overall as far as the platoon structure taking priority over the theme or the narrative of it. I'm happy to break it just so that way we can play with some of those toys. Yeah, it does mean I might not have a commander for my mortars or my MG team, but look, at the end of the day, it's not going to break the game too much.
From memory, the first mission is basically just 2 rifle platoons stumbling on each other on patrol.
Yeah.
And that's really small, like 300 points, which is basically, 2 squads, a couple of light mortars, an officer and a sniper kind of thing, depending on who you've got.
A lot less of that. A lot less for me.
A lot less if you're a veteran Gebirgsjäger.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more. But from on my side, a lot of the scouts were the Gumiers.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of veteran tough fighter units for me and maybe an officer. And I'm really excited, hopefully, when the French book eventually comes out, that we'll be able to give special rules like tough fighters to the command squads to represent officers from the Moroccan troops, or
like the Tirailleurs and stuff like that. They're having their own officers, but I suppose it depends on what historical side as well. Did they actually have their own officers? Were they actually on the same sort of thing? So so with those colonial troops, whether it's your French or Italian forces or whatever it might be, if there is those little differences, I think that's a cool thing to look at down the line as well. And hopefully Warlord does get into account when they make some of those new books. Yeah.
So that's basically it for my Colmar stuff.
That's pretty much it for me. Like it's still just plugging away at the painting. So I've got to paint hair tonight. So hair and then shading is what's up tonight. And then everything's pretty much done up to the level where I've just got to do all the, like I mentioned, got to relayer all the cloth, the main clothing, and then some straps here and there. That's pretty much it done. Then basing.
Excellent. Yeah. That's so exciting. I love when you reach that tipping point where they're almost done.
Yeah. Once they're fully painted and it's just the basing, I'm going to be I'm much happier.
Well, when Andrew announced that he was getting into the system with absolutely no pressure whatsoever, he might have received a set of airborne frames as his well done gift for completing the 365
With
challenge.
no ulterior motive
No, I
necessary.
think it was like
None at all.
a frame of like 6 guys and a blister pack of
AT gun.
yeah. No, it's just the little carbine.
Oh
Squads,
yeah, that's
like,
right. Yeah.
So he was like, "All right, cool, this is good."
This is
He's
happening.
in, and mentioned that Carentan was a specific area that he really likes historically from the work of the first.
Yeah, 100% everyone. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that'd be really cool." I thought about it, and at our Moab adventures, the prize that I took home from the prize pool was a couple of extra Normandy buildings. And I don't have that many, but I went, oh, I'll have a look at some of the sites. One of them was having a sale on its MDF stuff. And I went, well, if I get another couple of bits for like a town centre, then do a Carentan mission. But all my guys are on snowy bases. And it wasn't snowing in Carentan.
No,
it was not.
Which is why I'm the proud owner of a new Fallschirmjäger army, so that we can now have opposed themed armies with Andrew as well, because it's such a cool way to build your armies to go, right, he's building his based off what the 101st had. Yeah. I started looking up who was there. It turns out that the only real armor that was at Carentan was self-propelled guns like Stugs and things as well.
Yeah.
But I want to go mostly infantry, because in the TV show especially, it's basically just infantry.
Yeah.
And similar to you, I actually grabbed a couple of Kettenkrads to drag all my little artillery pieces around, because there's a horrible bit in that Carentan episode where a guy crosses the street and there's a self-propelled rocket artillery piece at one end and it just hits one guy dead on. So I bought one of those.
Yeah.
So there's a little light AT gun, like tracked one. I think the Panzer Bush. It's like the small bore, the squeeze bore.
Bore, yeah.
So I don't know if you've come across these, Andrew, but it's basically, it goes on. It's a light AT gun that does more damage at really close range, less damage at long range. So in the middle, it's normal.
Yeah.
But up close, it's a real bad day.
Yeah.
But it also means it's got to hang out. If it's doing any AT work, it's really got to hang out in ambush around a corner and wait for someone to come to it so I can get that good shot.
Which is great, because I have very little armor.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to be firing tiny templates at people instead. But it fits the theme. We can put it in some ruined buildings and it'll all work out.
I think it's probably one of the big draw cards for me for like when we do themed armies like this, is knowing that you're going to have a good game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no none of the power gaming behind it. There's you know that the selections that you're making are roughly mirrored by what Tim's taking for his Carentan army, which means it's a very level playing field.
Yeah.
Is always a fun time.
Absolutely. And if there's not, that's part of the theme. Like there are missions in our Colmar campaign pack, which I will actually publish for people to mess around with. But we're still writing it at the moment. There's a particular point in the Colmar history line where the Americans try to force a bridge so that they can get across to the other side. And they send all these troops across to take the other side of the bridge. And then the bridge won't actually support tanks. And the first Sherman across collapses the bridge. And then all the troops that are left are then trapped on the far side. And a heavy tank battalion, which works great for your Stugs and Panzer,
the Jagdtiger.
They roll in all these heavy tanks against trapped infantry. And the quotes from that time say that the ground was so frozen that they couldn't even dig foxholes to defend themselves. So we've put in special rules for that mission that you can't go to ground in the open, because you can't even scrabble in the dirt.
Cannot do anything.
So
it's actually, sorry to interrupt, but it's like that bit in Band of Brothers where it has the guy trying to dig the foxhole with his bare hands, and the ground is so frozen he's just like scraping his hands. It's like that level of frozen. It's crazy when you read about it.
And that means that mission is basically going to be a very narrative fighting withdrawal, where the goal is to get some of your troops off the table without them getting annihilated by tanks rolling over things.
Yeah.
But when you know that going in, when you go, I'm going to have a few bazooka teams that are going to try to sell their lives dearly to hold up those tanks. It can be an asymmetrical battle if you know you're going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, and there's some little tidbits like that in Quarantine as well. On the initial assault in, you've got Purple Heart Lane, where they're basically trying to get, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 bridges, but they need to advance pretty much in a straight line across a few bridges that are all zoned in by German mortars. They've got MMG, heavy MGs everywhere zoning this thing in. And you've got the airborne just trying to advance up the road. Lots and lots of casualties. Interesting little themey bits in there as well. You've got haven't researched enough about the names, but there's a section after they get across the last bridge where there's a German kind of semi-garrison on the hill, and they do a bayonet charge up it.
Yeah, wow.
Which is insane. Well, I mean, the major was a little bit in the head. But yeah, so there's those little things like that where there's very themey elements to all of the games.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, from you saying that, from a narrative point of view, it'd be cool to actually have rules for zeroed in borders for defended positions. Like if you said any target that is fired on by mortars within 6 inches of these locations, those have already been zeroed in
100%
before the battle, and that you could start hitting on a 4+ instead of a 6 or something.
Especially when you're playing that narrative defensive battles. They took all the time to go, that tree's 200 meters. We've zeroed in. We know what this range is. So applying that to the game adds a lot of flavor.
Yeah. Like if you used it in a random tournament match, it would be overpowered. But in a known narrative campaign, it works perfectly. Because then all your boys are going to look at it and go, well, we avoid the bridge. Do we try to cross the running water to get across without facing the zeroed in mortars? Or do I need to get my snipers to pin down all those mortars so that the boys can rush across without them being zeroed in? And those are the kind of tactical options that make a game interesting.
Having that, like you said, that asymmetrical battle. Look, let's face it, there's a lot of those during World War II. In most major conflicts, you'll have that anyway. But
one of the main points is don't be on even footing with your opponent. Have an advantage.
Have the upper hand on it. Yeah, and I mean having that asymmetrical battle style, I think lends itself really to narrative gaming, especially a lot of guys like us. If we want to spend more time building that narrative up, it does fit our play style a lot better. And you will find a lot of. I think you'll find other people out there that like doing that. So I think the guys from the the group that Ian Underwood plays with, they did a big thing for the Italian campaign, and they played through the narrative missions through that. Like it was really quite interesting to read about. And then when I think he had a chat with Brad about it on one Cast Ice episode as well, where they talked about playing through the missions and that sort of thing. It's that kind of thing of it that you get people at a certain point, they go, tournament play is not everything. I do like this narrative side of it. And those sorts of battles, having those extra special rules like the zeroed in mortars on the bridge, that sounds fantastic as far as a mechanic. Love it.
Need a special rule for old man waving blanket out window.
Wait.
All those little bits and pieces, like the characterful elements.
I mean, look, leading forward, if you have a going forward with your army, doing my army is set based on D-Day plus 10 or whatever it might be, Quarantine especially, plus whatever it might be. If you have that, but you go, okay, well then I want to do their march into into Holland. So you go, okay, well I can have add in some British tank crews or something like that. Have some more transports, that sort of thing. You can still, on the flip side, Tim, you can still use your force. While yes, it might be force from that might have that equipment, but still have the ability to go, well, these are some elements of another Fortune A division. They're going to be fighting here. You can then add in some extra units here and there to represent regular German troops or grenadier volunteers or something like that. So you can add those in to help bring another level of your gaming as well later on down the line. So you not just go, cool, we've played our campaign, that's it. Armies in the boxes, don't touch them again because we're not solid anymore. Like you have that replayability of going through and going, well, I can add a few extra things and go, I'm doing this section, this sector now, or whatever it might be. Yeah.
And I think for me, like Quarantine was really important for me in that regards, because depending on which element of the battle you're looking at, whether it's the initial advance or the actual taking of the town or defending it the next morning, there's different elements to what was present. If I focus on defending the town after they took it, I've got the option there to add in tanks. Because there's an armored division that rocks up right towards the end of the battle there, to help out the airborne, because they knew of the big push from the Germans. So I've got that option there to go, okay, well, I can add in a couple of Shermans. I can add in some regular US infantry for the armored infantry that's with the division.
Yeah.
It starts to give me that flexibility of going, okay, well, I'm not just an airborne army, even though that will be the main element.
Yeah.
And similarly, the Fallschirmjäger that I'm doing up to oppose you will also just be Fallschirmjäger added to my overall German army. The basing will be a little bit different because it's a little bit more green on these ones. But when you play massive battles, like if you're going to play a 3,000 point battle or something and use everything, it's all going to be uniform.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's jump off points that give us narrative, and then we have the flexibility to add whatever we want over time. Similarly with stuff like Conflict 47 that we talked about earlier, you can add a unit here or there to suddenly change the dynamic of it, completely away from your historical theme to being a post-historical sci-fi theme. All those jumping off points. Yeah. That's the big stuff for my Fallschirmjäger. It's been really interesting considering what it's going to be like having two veteran armies, both of paratroopers, fighting over cityscape, basically.
It's a lot of stubborn.
It's a lot of stubborn. It's a lot of good cover, a lot of 5+ wounding rolls as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be some tenacious fighting. And none of my guys appear to have flamethrowers source material.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of small arms fire and bayonet charges and rifle butts.
As many SMGs as you can cram into those squads as possible.
Yeah, so, it's tricky, man.
Yeah.
It's going to have some very fun things, I think.
Yeah.
Fun is underlined.
Exactly.
Fun. Yeah, I think with what you guys are doing is quite inspirational as far as sort of picking a different time period. It's something with with things like the splitting starter sets like we did, being able to have you and a mate sit together and build your forces, have that little arms race going on, which is always a lot of fun to have as well. So even if you have people joining in, like you won't necessarily have 3 different sort of armies in the same area, unless you're talking sort of like, North Africa or, Italy or something like that, where you did have, British, American, that kind of thing. You did have a bunch of stuff, but you also have, in some cases, some of the other major nations, you had there was a Brazilian regiment that was in Italy. So it gives you something slightly different. Like they're all equipped out as Americans essentially, but it does mean you have that little bit of a difference. Same with if you're taking a South African army as opposed to a regular British army. So you just have those modelling options over there for it. So I think those sorts of opposing forces, fantastic. I honestly like what we've been doing, and it's cool to see you guys building up your forces and talking about it as well.
And I guess we'll just have to see who gets theirs painted first.
Well, at least I only have to focus on one, whereas Tim will be focusing on both of his.
Technically 3 armies, because I've
got it in the bag then.
The French first, and then the US for Colmar, and I've got to finish my Fallschirmjäger so that we can play. For a hot minute in my head, I was like, maybe I should, instead of doing 365 challenge this year, maybe I'll just do a choose my own hobby challenge. And the old one popped up that was no games with unpainted models. And I was like, that's a hell of a challenge, because as soon as you talk about needing a game, you're like, right, we're having a game, I've got to go and finish this squad. However, so many of my games are spur of the moment, like who's free tomorrow? I can't. I try, but I can't finish a whole army by tomorrow just to get just so I can actually field it.
You haven't sold your soul for that ability yet, mate.
So. But I am going to aim to use even if it screws with my army list, I love a fully painted army. It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
The game feels so good when everything's painted and based. I'm going to aim.
Yeah. Having fully painted armies, look, it's the whole old tournament sort of thing where it's like, full painted army on the table looks so much nicer than a partially painted or grey plastic. Because this, I think, boils down to how much time do you have to put into your hobby. So, and any progress is progress. So, if you paint and you go, cool, I've got 3 colors minimum, and a shade, done. Yeah, that's my army done. If that's the level you want to paint to that. So, if you want to put the extra time in, do the freehanding.
Paint the eyebrows.
Paint eyebrows. Oh, yeah. Yep. Eyebrows. Even just painting eyes is hard enough.
Look forward to that with your dwarf army because they've got distinct eyebrows.
They're going to need. I'm pretty sure those Highland miniatures all have sculpted eyebrows as well. It's if you have,
especially if I do them with the 6K printer, Mitch, you have individual beard strands.
Yeah, so that's a lot of beard hair to paint.
You thought you were painting hair tonight?
Yeah, no, the dwarves are going to really take a lot. The painting up to a decent level, regardless of what that level is for you personally, I think you have a much better feeling of accomplishment sitting that army on the table and setting it up. It always looks better. It always does.
For me, it's more immersive. Especially
right,
loving narrative games. The game feels more like a story unfolding when not reminded that they're plastic soldiers all the time, or you're reminded that like glaringly when they're all base coated white and all you've done is put the flesh wash on to start with, and you're like, these guys are definitely unfinished models.
Yeah.
But when they're all painted, you're like, that's squad 3 and they're moving up to take that barn or whatever.
Yeah.
And that the story doesn't get hampered by that like immersion breaking reminder.
100%. I think it was very characteristic of that was I had a very large War Master game with Lee, our other War Master friend, and having 2,000 points each side of fully painted War Master, including all the terrain, is just a sight to see.
Yeah.
But I think, look, it also comes down to your individual hobby style. Some people are there for the gaming, and if you want to game with unpainted minis, then that's your thing.
Some people like to do things wrong.
It's.
And I accept that that's a thing that they do, but it's...
And Tim shows his true colours.
Look, choose your own challenge, but you're wrong.
Choose your own adventure. Flip to page 42. You're wrong. All right, good.
That's where you can also come into your own, like knowing your own limits. I've seen some really fun takes on people who don't enjoy painting, doing things like hologram armies for Star Wars Legion. Yeah, it's different. Yes, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but for that person, that's what their skill level is, and it's also a characterable thing where they're going, okay, well, for me, I see it as a hologram tabletop. You do you, and you get what you want out of it.
Exactly.
I suppose it's like stone cast armies, like the people that have done it with storm cast, but their armor is all stonework, like they're actually statues that have come to life. Yeah. Look, these all have their places. You look at some of the people that do that crazy comic book style painting where they do cell shading painting, or there was a guy who used to do some orcs for painting competitions, and they're all monochrome orcs, like out of comic books.
Yeah, nice.
Like
Sin City.
Yeah, like Sin City. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that sort of stuff. I'm like, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But it is only like black and white, like are the two main colors, maybe with a splash of red or something. So you do have that kind of side of it, which will be, it is like, again, choose your own adventure as far as painting is concerned.
Absolutely.
But yeah, look, people do crazy stuff with painting. Some people like gaming. It really is down to choose your hobby.
5. One of our goals that we've just kind of been talking about then was getting back into consistent recording. Yep. Hopefully, we'll be doing an episode a month, and that'll be where we start off, and we'll see how we're going from there.
Yeah.
But it has been great to be back in the recording saddles with these two fine gentlemen. Yep. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your points of view with us.
Thank you for the invite. Hopefully I will see all of you listeners again.
Excellent. Yep. Mitch, thank you as always for your sage wisdom.
I wouldn't call it sage.
Basil wisdom?
Basil wisdom?
Yep.
No, was it marjoram? Because it's not actually like a proper herb.
That is a deep
I
cut.
know. Anybody that likes marjoram, come at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hot takes. What herbs don't count as herbs?
Yeah, marjoram. Yep.
Excellent. Look, thank you so much for listening. As always, please check out the various socials that we've mentioned. There will be links on our Podbean for all of them. And you can go over to our Facebook page, which is just Inglorious Banters on Facebook. Follow us on there, and please leave any information with things that you like, things that you don't like, which one of us is the worst. Just let us know things that would be good for you to listen to,
If you like
and we'll see.
marjoram or not.
The start of our podcast has always been quite bolt action heavy, but we are looking at some episodes that will be not bolt action focused, similar kind of thing. We'll talk about what we've been doing, and then the state of the game might not be bolt action. It might be how we've got into Fjord Serpents or Stargrave or the other 75 games that Mitch has on his back burner.
It's way too many games, man. Way too many games.
Exactly. But please reach out, talk to us. We love getting feedback from people. And it also forces me to be accountable for completing the Colmar campaign and getting it out there. If people tell me I'm not doing it, get off your butt, Tim.
Yeah, it'll be like Tim said, any feedback is always welcome. So tell your mates about us as well. So I know I've done a bit of work mentioning to a few guys that I've seen recently, some old customers just out in the wild that I've gone through and come across. Had a chat to mention it. So yeah. If you have liked it and you want to share it with other people, definitely go ahead and share it through your socials as well. You can always tag us. So, just thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.